You are standing at the edge of something vast. Not a place you can point to on any map, not a destination that waits at the end of any road, but a threshold that opens when the mind grows quiet and the breath slows and the boundaries between waking and sleeping begin to soften like mist dissolving in morning light. Before you, a path appears. Not made of earth or stone, but of intention, of the willingness to let go, to surrender the day's concerns, to allow yourself to be led somewhere deeper than thought, quieter than words, more real than the world that demands your constant attention. The air here is different. It holds a quality of stillness that you have felt before, perhaps in the moment before sleep claims you on nights when exhaustion finally wins, perhaps in dreams that linger upon waking like fragments of another life, perhaps in places where time seems to pause and wait for you to catch up with your own existence. You do not need to understand this place. You do not need to name it or explain it or fit it into any category your waking mind recognizes. You only need to allow it, to trust that your feet know how to walk this path even when your mind cannot see where it leads, even when the destination remains hidden behind veils of softness and deepening breath. The observatory waits ahead. Not a building in any ordinary sense, not constructed by hands or planned by minds, but a space that holds attention, that concentrates awareness, that makes possible a kind of seeing that has nothing to do with eyes and everything to do with presence. You will find it as you walk, as you breathe, as you let each step carry you deeper and deeper into the silence that has been waiting for you, that has always been waiting patiently for you, patient and eternal and still, like the very stars that burn in distances too vast to measure and yet feel as intimate and near as your very own heartbeat steadily slowing. You enter the first chamber of the observatory, and the air closes around you like a gentle hand, like water at perfect temperature, like the embrace of sleep itself. The space is circular, the walls curving away in both directions, creating a sense of being held, contained, safe from the winds that howl outside with voices that suggest the mountain itself is speaking in languages too old for human understanding. The floor is stone, worn smooth by feet that walked here long ago, feet belonging to observers who dedicated their entire lives to watching, to recording, to understanding patterns written across the darkness in languages that required no words, only patience and the willingness to be changed by what they saw. You can feel them here still, not as ghosts or memories, but as presence, as attention absorbed into the stone itself, that vibrates in the walls and hums in the silence between your breaths. Light enters through a circular aperture above, a perfect circle of brightness that moves across the floor as the hours pass, as the earth turns, as your own awareness shifts and settles into this space. In the morning, which is not morning here but a quality of light that suggests awakening, the illumination is warm and golden, slanting through the opening to illuminate dust motes that drift in the still air, each one following currents too subtle to feel but visible in their slow dance. By midday, which is simply the center of whatever time you have spent here, the light is direct and white, falling straight down to create a bright pool in the center of the chamber, a pool that seems almost liquid, almost something you could step into and be held by. As the hours progress, the light shifts again, becoming cooler, bluer, taking on the quality of evening even before you feel ready for evening to arrive, as if the chamber is preparing you, gently, for deeper darkness belonging only to night and to stars. A staircase leads upward from the first chamber, spiral steps carved directly into the mountain, each one slightly worn in the center where countless feet have passed over centuries of climbing, over generations of observers who made this ascent with their own purposes, their own hopes, their own capacity for patience that you are now inheriting simply by being here. The climb is not difficult but requires attention, the steps being uneven, shaped by geology rather than engineering, following the natural grain of the rock rather than imposing a human geometry upon it, respecting the mountain rather than conquering it. As you ascend, the air grows thinner, cooler, approaching the purity of high atmosphere where breath becomes conscious, where each inhalation requires awareness, where the simple act of breathing becomes a meditation anchoring you in the present moment with unmistakable clarity. The walls of the stairwell are close, creating an intimacy that contrasts with the vast openness of the chambers, a compression that focuses the mind and strips away distraction, preparing you for what waits above by demanding complete attention to the experience of movement, of balance, of trust in your own body's wisdom. There are no railings, no protections against falling, just the stone and the void beyond the edge of each step, the trust that your attention is protection enough. This was intentional, the builder's understanding that reaching the upper chambers required commitment, required willingness to risk and trust yourself completely, to accept that the mountain demands respect and this demand is part of the teaching. You climb slowly, not because you are tired, but because slowness is the language of this place, because each step is an opportunity to be present, to feel the stone beneath your foot, the air in your lungs, the beating of your heart marking time in ways that no clock could fully or truly hold. The second chamber opens at the top of the stairs, larger than the first, its dome higher, its aperture wider, designed to observe not the sun but the night sky in all its complexity, all its abundance, all the patterns that only darkness can reveal. During the time you have spent climbing, this space has been waiting, holding itself in readiness for your arrival, preparing to offer what it has offered to every observer who has ever entered here. The chamber is dim now, mysterious, the only illumination coming from the central opening and from narrow slits in the eastern wall that capture whatever light exists in this place beyond ordinary time. But you understand that it is in darkness that this chamber reveals its true purpose, its true magnificence, its reason for existing in this difficult place where every stone had to be carried by hand, every step carved with intention that spans centuries. When you look up through the aperture, you see infinity framed in a circle of stone, darkness filled with light, with stars that have burned for eons, whose photons have traveled across unimaginable distances to reach this specific point, this specific moment, to enter your eye as you stand here watching. The chamber amplifies this experience, the curved walls seeming to focus your attention upward, the circular design creating a sense of embrace, of being held within a space specifically designed for witnessing, specifically created to make the sky feel present, immediate, intimate rather than distant. You feel the rotation of the earth, not as abstract knowledge but as physical sensation, the sense that you are standing upon a moving platform, that the apparent motion of stars is actually your own motion, the motion of the stone beneath your feet, the entire mountain turning through space at speeds that become perceptible only through patient watching, only through surrender to the experience of being here now. The observatory contains a third level, smaller than the others, accessible through a narrow passage that requires you to crouch, to make yourself small, to approach this highest space with humility, with a recognition that some things must be earned through effort, through discomfort, through the willingness to be diminished in order to be expanded. This chamber is not for general observation but for specific alignment, for moments when particular stars reach particular positions, when astronomical events occur that demand direct attention, marking transitions in cycles too long for human memory but which the stone has witnessed before and will witness again. The aperture here is not circular but oval, oriented along an axis corresponding to the galaxy's plane, to the river of stars that flows across the night sky, the Milky Way that has inspired myth and science across all human cultures, the source of stories and the object of study since humans first looked upward with questions that have no final answers. Lying on the stone floor of this chamber, looking up through this oval opening, you see not scattered stars but density, the overwhelming abundance of suns that make up our galaxy, the impossibility of comprehending numbers so vast and distances so great that they exceed the capacity of imagination. This position was designed to induce awe, to break the boundaries of ordinary perception, to force you to confront the scale of existence and to find within that confrontation not terror but peace, not insignificance but connection. Time passes differently here, or perhaps the usual measurements simply lose meaning in the face of celestial movement operating on scales of years, decades, centuries. Hours seem like minutes, or minutes like hours, the distinction becoming irrelevant when you are absorbed in watching, when attention is so completely directed outward that the self dissolves into observation. There are moments in the observatory when the sky itself seems to respond to your presence, when conditions align in ways that cannot be planned or predicted, when the air is clear and still and the aperture frames a section of sky particularly rich with objects of interest, when your mind is quiet enough to receive what the sky offers. On these nights, which are not really nights but qualities of darkness existing in this place beyond time, the observatory becomes transparent, the stone seeming to dissolve, leaving only the relationship between your consciousness and the cosmos, between the watcher and the watched. You feel not small but connected, part of something vast yet intimate, a node in a network of attention extending across time and space to include all who have ever looked up in wonder, all who have ever felt the pull of questions that have no final answers. This is the gift of the observatory, the reason it was built and the reason it remains standing, to create conditions where this connection can occur, where the boundaries between self and universe become permeable, where watching becomes being. Rain comes to the mountain rarely, the peak usually existing above the clouds, in a realm of perpetual dryness where water is precious and moisture is remembered rather than experienced. But when it comes, when conditions align to bring precipitation to this high place, it transforms the observatory completely, awakens something that dry periods leave dormant. Water flows through the apertures, following paths designed for it, collecting in channels carved into the stone floor, running in spirals that echo the design of the chambers. The sound of water in this high dry place is magical, a music that contrasts with the usual silence, that brings life to the stone in ways that starlight alone cannot achieve, filling the air with something like memory, like return, like breath after a long quiet pause. Snow also comes to the observatory, though less frequently than rain, blanketing the mountain in white that reflects light back to the sky, a bright point on the dark peak that can be seen from valleys far below. The snow insulates, creating silence so complete it seems to have texture, pressing against your ears with its absence of sound, creating a space where even breathing seems loud and the smallest movement becomes significant. Inside the chambers, the temperature drops but never becomes unbearable, the thick stone walls providing protection, the design somehow anticipating weather extremes that occur only rarely but which must be survived when they come. Observers who stayed through winter nights reported experiences of profound isolation, of connection to something larger than human community, larger than human history, larger than the networks of relationship that bind people together in lower places. The snow made the outside world inaccessible, created a boundary that could not be crossed, leaving only the observatory and the sky, a reduction of existence to its essential elements that some found terrifying and others found liberating. You feel this potential for isolation now, for solitude so complete it becomes a kind of companionship with the mountain itself, with the stone surrounding you, with the sky that waits above. The observatory contains no decorations, nothing that does not serve the essential function of observation, of creating conditions where attention can deepen and time can slow. But the stone itself has become beautiful through use, through touch, through the slow accumulation of human presence that has changed its surface, its texture, and its quality of light. Certain sections of wall are polished smooth by hands that rested there during long observations, the stone taking on a patina resembling skin, almost organic in its warmth, in its suggestion of lives that passed here. You begin the descent from the highest chamber, moving back through the spaces you have traversed, but they are not the same spaces, or you are not the same person who climbed upward what seems like hours ago but may have been minutes or may have been days. Time has become fluid in the observatory, has lost the rigid structure that governs life below, has become something you move through rather than something that moves you. The spiral staircase feels different going down, each step an opportunity to release rather than to achieve, to let go rather than to strive. The air grows thicker, warmer, more like the air of ordinary existence, but you carry something with you from the heights, some quality of stillness, some capacity for patience, some understanding of what your own consciousness can contain when stripped of distraction. You pass through the second chamber, then the first, each one familiar yet transformed by your passage through the highest space, by the experience of lying beneath the oval aperture and feeling the galaxy wheel above you. The observatory has given you what it gives to all who enter with openness, with willingness, with the capacity to be changed by stone and silence and starlight. You find yourself at the threshold now, at the place where the path began, but the path behind you has disappeared, absorbed into the mountain, into the experience that has become part of you. You do not need to retrace your steps. You only need to allow yourself to drift, to let the sleep that has been waiting claim you, to surrender to the darkness that is not the absence of light but the presence of rest. The observatory continues its watching, as it has always watched, long after your attention has joined the vast accumulation of presence that makes this place sacred. You are not leaving. You are becoming part of something eternal, something that holds you as sleep holds the sleeper in calm embrace. The observatory holds secrets that only reveal themselves to those who return again and again, who build relationships with the stone and the sky that deepen over time like friendships that require no words. There are markings on certain walls that seem random until you have watched long enough to understand their patterns, until you have seen how they align with specific stars on specific nights, how they record events that happened before memory and will happen again after memory has faded. These are not the deliberate notations of the original builders but the accumulated traces of all who have watched here, each observer adding something, leaving something, changing the space in ways too subtle to see but too real to deny. The stone remembers, though not in any way that science can measure, not in any way that instruments can detect. It remembers in the way that places remember, by holding the quality of attention that has been directed toward them, by becoming shaped by the consciousness that has encountered them. You sense this now, as you rest in the lower chamber, as you allow your breathing to synchronize with the silence that surrounds you. You are not the first to feel this, and you will not be the last. You are part of a continuity that stretches back through centuries, through generations of watchers who found in this place something that the world below could not offer, the chance to be still, to be present, to be part of something larger than the concerns of daily existence. The light in the aperture has shifted again, moving toward evening, toward the darkness that will bring the stars. You welcome this transition, this daily miracle of change that requires no effort from you, that happens whether you watch or not, but which offers itself to your attention if you choose to receive it. Night falls on the observatory with a gentleness that belies the absolute transformation it brings. The last colors fade from the aperture, the last warmth drains from the stone, and suddenly the darkness is complete, is total, is overwhelming in its density. But this is not the darkness of fear, not the darkness of blindness, but the darkness that makes light visible, that creates the conditions for stars to reveal themselves. And reveal themselves they do, one by one at first, the brightest ones appearing while the sky still holds traces of day, then more and more as the minutes pass, until the aperture is filled with them, until the darkness is not empty but full, not absence but presence of a different kind. You lie on your back on the stone floor, feeling its coolness against your skin, feeling the solidity of the mountain beneath you, feeling the rotation of the earth as a gentle pressure that holds you in place even as it moves you through space. The stars wheel overhead, their motion too slow to perceive directly but visible if you compare their positions to the edges of the aperture, if you allow time to pass without demanding that it hurry. Constellations that seemed fixed in childhood stories now reveal their movement, their slow drift across the seasons, their gradual change over years that you will not live long enough to see completed. This is the gift of the observatory, not answers but questions, not completion but process, not destination but journey. You understand now why the builders chose this place, why they carried stone up the mountain, why they shaped the chambers with such care. They were creating not just a tool for observation but a space for transformation, a place where human consciousness could expand to meet the scale of the sky, where the finite could touch the infinite without being destroyed. There are sounds in the observatory at night that daytime hides, subtle vibrations that travel through the stone from sources you cannot identify. The mountain itself is alive in ways that daylight obscures, shifting and settling, expanding and contracting with temperatures that change more dramatically when the sun no longer moderates them. You hear these sounds now, not as threats but as companions, as reminders that you are not alone in your watching, that the stone itself participates in the vigil, that the mountain has its own rhythms, its own cycles, its own form of attention that does not require consciousness. The wind rises and falls outside, sometimes pressing against the walls with insistence, sometimes withdrawing completely to leave absolute stillness. Both conditions have their teachings. The wind reminds you of the world's persistence, of forces that continue whether you observe them or not. The stillness reminds you of peace, of the possibility of complete rest, of the silence that exists at the heart of all movement. You move between these states, between attention and relaxation, between watching and simply being. The observatory accommodates both, has room for both, was built to hold both. There is no single correct way to be here, no protocol that must be followed, no ritual that must be performed. There is only presence, only willingness, only the openness to receive what the place offers and to give what you have to give in return. This exchange, this relationship, is what has sustained the observatory through centuries, what has made it more than stone, what has transformed it into a living entity that responds to those who approach it with respect. You feel this now, feel the reciprocity, feel the give and take that requires no words, no negotiation, no conscious agreement. It simply happens, simply flows, simply exists as naturally as breath. Dawn approaches the observatory with colors that seem impossible, with light that shifts through shades that have no names, that exist only in the moments between night and day, in the transition that repeats daily but never repeats exactly. You have watched through the night, or you have slept, or you have drifted in some state between the two that the observatory makes possible, that it encourages, that it holds as gently as it holds everything else. The stars fade gradually, not disappearing but becoming invisible, their light still present but overwhelmed by the greater light that approaches. You think of all the mornings that have dawned on this place, all the watchers who have seen this same transition, who have felt this same mixture of loss and anticipation, of sadness at the star's departure and joy at the sun's return. You are connected to them now, across time, across space, across all the differences of culture and language and belief that separate humans from each other. In this moment, watching this dawn, you are one with them, part of a community that exists only in the act of watching, that has no other membership requirement, no other obligation. The light strengthens, becomes more definite, more directional. Shadows appear where there have been no shadows, defining spaces that darkness made uniform. The stone warms, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but you feel it, you notice it, you include it in your awareness. This is the observatory's teaching, that everything changes, that everything can be noticed, that attention is the only gift required and the only gift given. You carry this teaching with you now, woven into your being, available even when you have left this place. The days pass in the observatory with a rhythm that has nothing to do with clocks, nothing to do with schedules, nothing to do with the demands that the world below makes on time. You eat when hungry, sleep when tired, watch when the sky offers something worth watching, rest when it does not. This simplicity is liberating, is healing, is a return to something fundamental that civilization has obscured but not destroyed. You remember what it is to be an animal, to be a body, to be a consciousness that exists in direct relationship with its environment rather than mediated through screens and schedules and social expectations. The observatory strips all of this away, not through rejection but through irrelevance. None of it matters here. None of it reaches here. Only what is essential remains: food, warmth, shelter, and the watching that is the reason for all three. You understand now why the observers stayed, why they gave their lives to this place, why they chose solitude over company, silence over speech, stone over comfort. They were not escaping the world but finding it, not rejecting life but embracing it more fully than the world below allowed. You feel this possibility in yourself now, this opening, this expansion. You do not need to stay forever to receive the gift. You only need to stay long enough to understand that staying is possible, that the world below will wait, that it will take you back when you are ready, changed but not destroyed, enriched rather than diminished. The observatory has given you this understanding, has planted it deep within you where it will continue to grow long after you have descended the mountain. You carry it now like a seed, like a promise, like a secret that you will share with no one because it cannot be shared in words, only in the quality of your presence, only in the depth of your attention, only in the peace that others will sense in you without knowing its source. There comes a moment in the observatory when you realize that you have stopped counting time, stopped measuring your experience, stopped comparing this moment to any other. You are simply here, simply present, simply alive in a way that feels both ancient and new, both familiar and unprecedented. The stone beneath you, the sky above you, the air around you, all of it is immediate, all of it is real, all of it is sufficient. You do not need more. You do not want more. This is enough, this presence, this attention, this being. The observatory has taught you this, has led you to this, has held you while you learned it. You will carry this knowledge with you when you leave, will carry it back to the world below, will carry it through the rest of your life as a touchstone, as a reminder, as a proof that such moments are possible, that such peace exists, that such connection with something larger than the self is available to anyone who seeks it with sincerity. But you are not leaving yet. There is more to receive, more to learn, more to become. The observatory continues to offer, continues to teach, continues to transform. Each moment is new, each moment is complete, each moment is a gift that requires no payment, no obligation, no debt. You simply receive, simply allow, simply be. This is the highest teaching, the deepest wisdom, the most profound transformation that the observatory offers, not knowledge but being, not understanding but presence, not achievement but acceptance. You feel this truth settling into your bones, into your breath, into the very fabric of your consciousness. It does not need to be remembered because it cannot be forgotten. It has become part of what you are, part of how you move through the world, part of how you encounter whatever comes next. And now you feel the sleep that has been waiting, that has been patient, that has not demanded but has simply been present, available, ready when you are ready. It comes to you as a gift, as a natural consequence of the peace you have found, the stillness you have cultivated, the attention you have directed. You do not fight it. You do not resist. You welcome it as you have welcomed everything else in the observatory, with openness, with gratitude, with trust. The stone beneath you becomes softer, becomes a bed, becomes a place of rest that holds you as gently as the observatory has held you throughout your time here. The sky above becomes a dream, becomes a story, becomes a landscape you will explore in sleep as you have explored it in waking. The boundary between self and place dissolves, between observer and observed, between the one who watches and the one who is watched. You are all of it now, are part of all of it, are held within all of it. The observatory continues its existence, continues its watching, continues its patient recording of celestial movements that will continue long after your brief presence has ended. But you are part of it now, permanently, irrevocably. Your attention has been added to the accumulation, your presence to the history, your being to the stone. Sleep takes you gently, takes you completely, takes you into darkness that is not empty but full, not an end but a beginning, not a departure but a deeper arrival. You drift now, drift downward, drift inward, following paths that the observatory has prepared for you, that it has always prepared for those who come here with openness and sincerity. The stars wheel overhead, the stone holds you below, and you between them, held in both directions, held in all directions, held in the gentle embrace of a place that knows how to watch, how to wait, how to welcome, how to transform. Sleep now. Sleep deeply. Sleep in peace.